Hello, I'm Kamden Hainsworth, and this is Kamden ADHD. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. I am a 36-year-old trying to navigate ADD for the first time in my life. After recognizing ADHD in my daughter, I poured so much into her that it was interesting. I couldn't see it in myself. And through a series of different works of God, I believe I have landed on a lot of answers and a lot of truth that have really been liberating me. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get talking. Hello, yes, I am Kamden. I'm so glad that you're here. Have you ever been absent-minded? I think that everyone has from time to time, but those of us with ADD, this is a regular occurrence. In fact, this morning my husband looked at me and he said, "Okay, where are the keys?" And I said, "They're in my purse, where they always are." And then after he was scrambling through the Mary Poppins annals of way too many things, as you can imagine, I realized, oh, they're in my jacket. Sorry. So I had to go into my jacket. And I don't know why I couldn't hang up his keys, but every single day I hang up my own keys, except for the fact that it's not part of my system now. And I need to make that part of my system. I went and got groceries last night while he watched our girls, and I just didn't have that system of taking his keys and hanging them up the same way that I do with my own. And I actually got a lanyard for my keys so I can wear them around my neck because of the fact that I put them into so many different pockets and different things. So I might look a little dorky, but it is helping my ADHD tendencies so much more having those keys, strangling my neck a little bit. The funniest story that I thought of with this absent-minded type of attitude, and it really isn't funny, and we've all had these, but it's just like how many times it happens, right? So have you been to Walmart with all your groceries, with all your kids, gotten to the checkout and realized you don't have your wallet? Well, I can't even count how many times that's happened to me in my lifetime. So many. And I have my purse, but I don't have my wallet. You know, like maybe I've taken my wallet out, I've put it by the computer, but I don't think to like double check that every single time. A lot of the time I do double check it, but so that's something. But this one day was insane. It was very embarrassing for me, and I was really grateful that my sister is living with us. I think I had made some mac and cheese, or was going to make mac and cheese. I put a pot on to boil and then got distracted and ended up leaving the house with my kids and came back with all the windows open, the smell of smoke in the air, and complete confusion on my end. Like, what the heck just happened? And I can't remember if my sister came up from downstairs at that point or if she had come back from school or something. But she's like, "So I came upstairs and there was all this smoke everywhere." And I can't remember. I think it may have set off the smoke alarm. And I saw this, pot on the element, just red hot element on the stove, and moved the pot off. And it was like burning the pot or whatever was on there. And I don't actually know what will happen if you continue to do that, if it will like combust into fire, but it was really embarrassing. As you can imagine, all of the water had evaporated out, steamed off, and it was just burning the pot for probably well over an hour. I don't know what time it was that she got to it, but I just hate it when I do stuff like that. I just do. I just really hate it. I don't ever mean to be irresponsible in general. I'm a very responsible human being. And so this part of ADD is, while it's very helpful for me to realize this is why this has happened so much in my life. And I just thought of another thing. It's still like frustrating and embarrassing and belittling. And I don't know if you can belittle yourself, not on purpose, but that's how I feel like. I feel like my mind is making fun of me and poking fun at me when I can't handle one thing at a time. And life is so boring. That's something that you have to understand is some people are like, just slow down and, do one thing at a time. That's just not an option. Life is so unfulfilling for those with ADD. when you're only focused on one thing at a time, unless it's part of your hyper focus. Yesterday, I worked on some art for probably 4 or 5 hours straight. I helped my daughters get some lunch in between then and made sure that, they were well and they're playing with friends at the home, and it was, they were being taken care of. But I was doing art for 5 hours yesterday, and it felt great. And that's the only time that I can do it. Now, mind you, I was listening to a podcast, I was watching a show, I was listening to music all throughout that process. I was definitely multitasking. So on 3 different devices, looking for inspiration for the art. So the hyper focus wasn't just the art itself for me. But most of the time, if I'm not thinking of at least 2 or 3 things, maybe even 4, I just feel unfulfilled. And that's something that I think is important for people without ADHD to recognize, is that in order to have a fulfilling life, in order to feel like your life is worth living, in order to feel like you're being your best self, it's not that we feel like we're spreading ourselves thin, but we want to be engaged in lots of good. We want to be engaged in lots of people's lives and in lots of different dimensions of life. And that's what makes us fun to be around, is because we can relate with you. We're very relatable because a lot of the time we've done what you've done, at least a little bit. The last thing I wanted to share with you is kind of in the same breath, but maybe we'll use it for another podcast as well. But I have had such a hard time my whole life with words. And I think I talked a little bit about this in part of one of my first podcasts, but words are so hard for me. And just the other day, my friend Helen came over. We were talking about light fixtures and the different colors of light bulbs that there are, natural light versus white light versus LED light versus yellow light. And we were talking about a certain kind of light bulb that have been pretty popular over the last 5 years or so. And I called them Einstein lights. And she got this big smile upon her face and was just grinning and started chuckling. And she's like, "Oh, Edison lights, Kamden? You mean Edison lights?" I was like, yeah, oh my goodness, Edison lights. And if my brother would have been here, he would have cracked up because he's the sibling that's like closest to me in age. I'm actually the oldest of 7. And he's a sibling that's only 3 years younger than me. And he has seen me. He's pretty good with his language, and he also has ADD, but he's like super on point with his vocabulary. I am the one that always says the idioms wrong, gets my phrasing all wrong. I try and say like the idiom or the common phrase, and it just comes out completely backward and has no meaning because I'm like mixing 2 different ones, like, why did the chicken cross the road? Hey, diddle, diddle, cat in the fiddle. It's like I get it all mixed up. And I think it kind of goes along with that idea also of when people tell you their name, that as long as you see their face, you're going to recognize their face. You're going to remember like what their brother's birthday was. If they mention that in the conversation, you're going to remember what kind of shoes they were wearing. But remembering their name, like the name was kind of insignificant. And unless there's real value to their name, it doesn't matter what their name is to me as a person. They hold the value, not their name. And so that's why I have a hard time keeping that in my mind too. Just like with phrases and with words, that the value is there, but the actual label that we give that value is so insignificant for me that it just doesn't matter. So we're going to bring this back full circle real quick here and then sign off. But when I am absent-minded, when I do seem to be forgetful, it's not because I want to be forgetful. It's because other things take precedence. And the value all of a sudden of making that mac and cheese became a lot lower on the totem pole than the thing I actually needed to do. And so I'm trying to be more responsible by doing the more important thing. But in the meantime, I have dug my own grave, if you will. Hey, I got that idiom a little bit correct. I have dug my own grave by not completing a task that I started that is going to have some negative consequences because I did not end that task. So I hope that gives you a little bit more insight to this navigation and to kind of how I'm feeling. It's really been fun once again to embark on this journey at the age that I'm at and realize I'm not alone. Haven't been crazy and stupid and absent-minded for no reason my whole life. It's just how my brain works. And, I've been seeing a lot of these cartoons and memes, and I don't really know if I have like a specific answer or a belief pattern about what they're saying, but a lot of them are like, you can't change a brain that can't concentrate. You can't just say, just focus. And I believe that's true. I've seen that a lot in my daughter, and unfortunately I have been that mom that's been frustrated and said that to her, not because I believe it, just because I'm impatient and frustrated. But the more pressure that's put on me to perform the way that other people think that my brain should perform, the less likely I am to be successful in that area. It isn't something I can just change or will myself or study myself into knowing. History was so hard for me. I could not remember names for the life of me, but man, could I write a good paper. Man, could I talk about the parallels of, World War II and in our life now and what we're to learn from them. I can internalize the value of that, but tell me to remember the dates and names, very, very difficult. Where did I get? Total ADHD moment there. We're rolling back into it. So I decided to keep some of my thinking in here because this is a podcast about ADHD. And if I cut out all this talking, then we're talking about, I would be in a way diminishing the fact that you can live with ADD, and it's okay to forget your train of thought every so often. Okay, I went back and I re-listened. So, with the memes, I don't know if I have a conclusion that I can draw yet. I do not think that you can just force a brain that is ADD or ADHD. You can't just force them to become that. But there are tools with encouragement and love that can become more helpful. And that's why I just love like this idea of this placemat that's like keys, glasses, phone, debit card, and purse, turn off all irons and stoves. I'm like, there are tools that we can do that help us remember. My friend Emily actually she was a cyclist, and she put her bike on top of her car, and she drove her car into her garage twice. And even with like one of those little signs that you can put in your car saying like bike on top that are really yellow and obnoxious, like as much as we can do that, sometimes what we actually need is to take our garage door opener out of our car and put it like underneath our placemat in our house, outside of our house, so that we don't even have the option of opening the garage door when we have a bike on our car. And that's what I'm talking about. We have mechanisms that we can have different habits that we can start to perform in order to help ourselves be our best self and help our brain get trained that way. So anyway, I'm so glad to have had you with me today. If you found any value in today, or if you think that someone else would find value in this podcast, please subscribe and share. I think the larger this community gets, the better it can become. I know by sharing and becoming connected with people that are also in the same boat as me, I've learned more about myself, and that's what I hope to provide for you. Have a beautiful day. I'm going to add in a little bonus feature. I had to run out of the door to go pick up my daughter from preschool, but my sister Tegan came upstairs, and I asked her to tell the story of the pot on fire, and her details were much better than mine, and I completely forgot about half the things that she said, so enjoy.
So one morning when I was living at my sister's Kamden's house, I was downstairs in my room, and I was just kind of getting ready for the day. It was probably about 11 or so in the morning, and I remembered hearing the fire alarm go off. And at first I thought, I'm sure she's got it under control. She's just going to laugh and maybe be a little embarrassed when I go up and check what's happening. So I kind of hung out for a little bit, and then the fire alarm was still going off. And I thought, I better not be the idiot who ignores the fire alarm. And so I go upstairs, and as I go upstairs, I'm getting more and more confused because I don't hear anyone. The house is clearly full of smoke. I hear this weird popping sound, and I go up and I look at the stove. It's on, and there are just things exploding out of the stove, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so I go over there, I look in, they're just like burned, exploding eggs in the bottom of this pot. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I turn off the stove, I grab some pot holders, take the pot off the stove, try and open up all the windows, and there's still egg exploding out of the stove. It was craziness, and I was dying laughing the whole time because never in my life have I seen so much egg splattered around the house. And I don't know, maybe 20 minutes later, Kamden comes home, and I had texted her saying, what just happened? And a few minutes later, she came home and was like, what the heck? I totally forgot. I thought I had turned it off. Anyway, it was really funny, and I spent the next few minutes sweeping lots of exploded hard-boiled egg off the floor. And
Crazy.
it has been quite a funny memory ever since. Good thing I was home, though.
Oh, yeah. So that was so awesome. I had completely forgotten that there were eggs in that pot. And now that she says that, I remember everything. I remember the smell now. Oh, my gosh, it was bad. Eggs everywhere. I'm so glad she was home. But, you know, if you guys have done something like this, like, I'm with you guys. Totally with you. It's just part of life in general, but really, really part of life when you're living with ADD.